The Russians launched this, what was essentially a blitzkrieg, with shock and awe at the beginning, missile strikes, air strikes to intimidate the Ukrainian people. Of course, he had started by rattling his nuclear saber to put everybody on edge. Then he had sent these columns racing down the road, trying to get to the center of cities and get them, occupied before Ukrainian resistance could solidify. He attacked on 4 different axes in the north, northeast, east, and south, all with the notion, as you say, of getting the Ukrainian government to collapse. And his reading, in a sense, was not crazy. If you polled the Ukrainian people, they looked very divided. Zelensky was not very popular. But what happened, of course, is that under attack, the Ukrainians came together. Zelensky, turned out to be a magnificent wartime leader, and the resistance, began to coalesce. The Russian units, which had been racing forward, many of them were cut off and chewed up, and the arms that the United States and others had sent to the Ukrainians really made a big difference. We sent thousands and thousands of anti-tank weapons, and that helped blunt these Russian attacks. So then the Russians turned to a more methodical set of attacks, using their firepower. And of course, we're seeing that in many cities around Ukraine. They're still moving forward, though very slowly, and using a lot of firepower.
Yes, they're using firepower, but gee, I would have thought they would use more firepower. I would have thought at this stage, 3 weeks in, they would be flattening not just buildings but whole blocks. Putin flattened big chunks of Chechnya and Syria. They certainly were. I just don't understand why it hasn't been. It's been violent, but why it hasn't been even more violent? Why it hasn't been even more of a massive attack? What's going on?
Well, that's an interesting question, in the sense that most people are asking, why is it this violent? I think there are probably 2 things, although, we really are speculating. I mean, one is that they are trying to focus their firepower, and flattening cities doesn't really, help a whole lot if you're facing an army that's holding you off. And the other one is, I think that the fact that what they're doing is being seen by the entire world, with social media, every rocket, every missile that lands in a city is recorded. Well, I think that's having an effect. And, the Russians, in many ways have been really quite careful. I mean, in some ways, for instance, there are demonstrations in, Ukrainian cities against Russian troops. And, the Russians have, for the most part, tried to ignore that. I mean, they have done some arrests, but I think that the fact the world is watching really makes a big difference.
Roger, do you think that Putin is holding back?
A surprisingly good model for this war may be found in the Second Chechen War, which happened in Putin's first year as president, or it had begun actually when he was prime minister. Chechnya had a population in 2000 that's basically 1/100th of what the population of Ukraine is today, and it took 5 months for the Russian army to take the capital of Chechnya, Grozny. They utterly destroyed it, I understand. So that the brutality of the attack was immense, but it took them a while. We're only 3 weeks into a war, so the story there was. It took 5 months for them to destroy Grozny, another couple of months to take the capital, and another couple of months to end open hostilities. And then there was about 9 years of guerrilla war, and since then they've installed a local dictator to suppress any dissent in the population there. And that's obviously got to be our best model of what Putin is went into this expecting. Although perhaps he was optimistic that since Ukraine is a flat country and Chechnya had high mountains that are good for guerrilla warfare, that he might be able to make a quick blitzkrieg takeover and that would be faster than Chechnya. But of course, Ukraine is vastly larger, and the number of troops going in is only a small multiple of what they used in the Second Chechen War. Of course, they're much better prepared.